Okay.
Go ahead and test mic.
Test 1, test 2.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. Yes?
Yeah.
I think that sounds pretty good. Okay, and 1 second. I want to make sure that we're okay. Okay. So yes, so Dr. Lee, would you like to go ahead and introduce? I'm just gonna hang on. I'm just gonna, yep, there we go. We are on. Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to our wonderful holistic program. And in class today, this is Nadine Heusner. She is a fantastic mental health counselor, and of course, with expertise in many other areas of what is of mental health. So, welcome, Nadine. Thank you so much. And
hello, everyone. I'm so thankful to be here. Dr. Grace, thank you so much for your invitation to be a part of this day. Self-care is a topic that I not only speak about, but I live about, if that makes sense. So we can start with the first slide, please. Okay. So today's discussion is going to be about self-care, and I know often people are like, well, why do we need to talk about it? And through this presentation, you're going to learn why we need to talk about it, because it's not as natural as people think it is, and it's something that you have to be very mindful and intentional about. So today's topics, we're going to discuss what is self-care, the importance of self-care, barriers to self-care, and we're going to do a little bit of strategies and things that you can do, how to incorporate it into your daily life. And for those of you who are home, I want you to get a pen and paper at the end. We're going to develop affirmation statements, so you'll need pen and paper. And for those who are here, I have some paper, little decorative papers that you could use, because once you write your statements, I need you to commit to that, and you're going to place it somewhere in your space to remind you of the importance of self-care. So my name is, as Dr. Lee had stated, my name is Nadine Heusner. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been licensed for several decades, and mental health is, like I said, it's not just something that I talk about, it's something that I truly believe. My primary modality of care is cognitive behavioral therapy. And just to kind of sum it up, it's really change the way you think, you change the way you are, you will change the way you feel. So that's why today, us talking about self-care, we're talking about self-care with you, is going to, I hope, open up some understanding about you and your lives and what you were doing. Next, please. So, what is self-care? I need some participation. Shout out the answers. What is self-care?
Taking time out the day to reset your mind.
Yeah, taking time. Absolutely. Taking, right? So taking, you're going to commit, not asking, not bargaining, you're taking time. What else? Who else? Some other ideas of what self-care is? Yes?
Meditation.
Meditation, right? Meditation is about being in the moment, being present, right? Being mindful and typically focusing on positive thoughts that affirm, regenerate you, those kinds of things. Who else? I need
Well, I'm just going to shout. The emphasis is really on you, and it sounds selfish, but we always think of everybody else. And so you.
Absolutely. It is about you, right? Today, this workshop is a self-care, right? It is about you building skills, right? Taking time to do something for you that benefits you, not a friend, not family, not your job, but just you making that commitment. And as my slide stated, simply stated, it's care of self. Just caring for yourself. And self-love is something that we all struggle with. We forget ourselves. We are quick to put everybody else before us, but we never really take the time to think about ourselves, prioritize ourselves. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that affects us in our lives and with our relationships. Next, please. So, what is the importance of self-care? Why is self-care important, right? We say, oh, I don't need to do that. I don't have time for it, right? But it's about happiness. If we don't take care of ourselves, we're unhappy people. Do you have people in your life who are always doing, and they're just horrible to be around? Because they're doing for everybody else, and you're like, hey, I have a question, and then they kind of shake you a little bit, right? You're not happy. You may think by being productive and by doing these things, oh, I'm working towards happiness, I'm doing happiness, but you're really not. You're really making yourself unhappy when you don't prioritize yourself. Another benefit is it creates deeper personal connections. When you take a moment just to be still, connect with that friend you may not have seen, connect with your partner who you live with and spend time with, right? Just building those relationships, going out, doing things that bring you joy. It helps to bring those deeper personal connections in your lives. So that's an important thing. It brings you happiness. And it also helps you to build relationships with people. And you hear people talk about, I feel so alone. I just don't have anybody. No one is ever around. Maybe because you're not around. Right? It starts with you. And if you're not around, people are not going to be around. And that's when you take the responsibility. And that's why you have to prioritize yourself. Another benefit of self-care is it's good for the body. Now I'm not going to exercise. I should do a lot more. It's in my mind. I am working out. I do watch the videos and I get motivated. But it's good for the body, right? Our stress level goes way down when we take an opportunity to do something for ourselves, right? When you go and you work out, and when I say work out, I'm not talking about in the gym, lifting 300 pounds, doing that marathon. It can be something as simple as just walking around the campus, right? It could be something as simple as what you eat benefits your body. So often we're on the go and we grab things that really have lost their value for our body, but it's easy. It's right at hand. We'll grab it. We'll grab that cookie because it's right there. But we know ultimately it doesn't really do us well. So self-care, the importance of it is that it's going to give you personal happiness. It's going to give you deeper personal connections with friends, families, partners. It'll also make you healthier. So if you're struggling with, what are the main things? Hypertension, high cholesterol, diabetes, all of those things are actually symptoms of not really loving yourself, not really taking time to take care of your body and your body, your mind, your spiritual, because self-care is also, even that spiritual connection, finding time to connect with that higher power. Any questions? Okay. So, as I speak about it, and the reason why I seem to know so much about these effects is because did you know that 60% of Americans do not make time for self-care. 60%. See, for every 10 people, there are 6 people who don't make time. We're just too busy. How many of us in this room, honestly, guilty, right? Completely, right? So you're not alone. So don't feel too bad, right? Because you are with great company, right? Because we all rose our hands, and some of you who are watching virtually, right? I know you raised your hand also, because it's just not, you're not conditioned, you're not trained. We live in a culture, of society where it's about to do. It's not a song, but it's about the do. And that's not okay. And it's not something that comes natural. It really, really doesn't come natural. Our culture is conditioned to go, 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 go. I know I'm a mother of 2, and I have already trained them from an early age about go, 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 go. We gotta go to this activity and that activity and this lesson and that. And there was a time where my youngest was like, can't we just stay home? Can't we just, and like I realized, I was like, oh my God, I'm preaching to people all the time the importance of self-care, but those who I'm responsible for, I didn't give them the opportunity to have that moment. And when he said it, I was like, no, we got this, and we got this, and we got to do that, right? But yeah, sometimes you don't have to fill your day with activity. Sometimes you just need to be still, be present in the moment, right? Next, please. So what are some of those barriers of self-care? Okay, my slides are not working the way they're supposed to, but it's okay. Something got lost in the translation. Don't look at the bottom. What are those barriers? Okay, what are your barriers? I need everyone to tell me what your barriers are to self-care. What stops you?
Bad time management.
Bad time management, right? Deadlines. Procrastination. They on that. Professional development prevents you. It's a barrier. It can be, right? When you're always thinking, how can I do better? How can I do it? And just constantly trying. And I know there's a rule of thumb that I think it's called the 10,000 hour rule of thumb, where to be really great at something, you have to commit 10,000 hours. Has anybody heard of that? Good.
I do it, I've done it, but I didn't know I was doing that.
Yeah. With the Olympics, there was an Olympian who said, there's a 10,000 hour rule that in order for you to really, excel in whatever sport or activity you are, it has to be 10,000 hours. I was like, oh my gosh, right? And you can see it, but anyone who's really mastered their craft, you have to eat, sleep, breathe, all of that, right? What are the barriers what are some other barriers? Anyone else? Caring, yeah, we're all caregivers. Human beings by nature we're dead animals, right? We work best in a collective. And to be a part of a collective means you may have to care and nurture, protect someone else. But we hear of caregiver burnout. If anyone has ever had a loved one or know a friend who's struggling, right, with some ailment, and the person who's caring for them and they feel guilty, they can't not take care of them, because if I don't take care of this person, what if something bad happens? Or, and that goes to us too, understanding that there's but only so much we can do. And that sometimes our good enough is good enough. It's good enough, right? So because my slides are not working well, and it's not here, it must be how I sent it. Work work is one of those big barriers. How many people work 40 or more hours a week? Constantly working on this little hamster wheel, just running, right? Just constantly on the go. And when I say work in school too, right? You're just constantly on this, I get up, I do, I get up, I do, I get up, I do, you just keep going, right? And it's a lot. And we develop those patterns, like I said, from very early on in our lives. We develop that good work ethic. We also, like I said, if you have, if you're a caregiver, if you're a parent, if you have a partner, you're always caring for someone else. Now, there are those partners who care for themselves, okay? But for the most part, we're always caring for someone else, right? And let's talk about guilt. How many of us really, if you could think of a time in your life when you really wanted to do something, and you're like, this would make me so happy. But if I don't do it, someone else is going to feel bad or it's not going. How many of us have had that experience? Yeah, guilt. It is a huge barrier. And I'm bringing these barriers because when you don't make time for yourself, I want you to stop for a minute and ask yourself, am I falling in one of these three categories? Because this is the top of these, right? Work, caring for others, and guilt. You will probably fall into one of those categories as to why you are not taking care, right? So let's get started. Let's get started. Let's talk about how we're going to clear our minds, right? We're going to clear our hearts, because that's another thing. That's what we got to take care of. And we're going to start practicing or coming up with some ideas on how we can start, and I need participation, right? Some ideas on how we can start to care for ourselves, okay? So is everybody ready? Is everybody, have we cleared our minds? Cleared our hearts, right? Clear our lungs, because we all have to identify strategies for ourselves and what's going to work. And I'm going to throw some out there, but I want you to really start thinking as you sit here today, how you can start to care for yourselves, all right? So, next please. Okay, so we cleared our hearts and our minds, our lungs, right, our souls to be ready, right? So, let's start by giving ourselves grace. What does that mean, giving yourself grace? Honoring yourself. Yeah. Being kind. Each of us could probably list the number of kind things we have done in a day, and we haven't, and we're not part of that. We're not one of them. Yes.
Not judging ourselves, really.
Not judging, and we are completely judging. And know that not only, when we judge, we hurt ourselves. When we judge somebody else, we hurt them. Being in a space of total of, it's good, it's okay, being kind to myself, I deserve this, right? Giving yourself that permission to do that. The next thing is setting boundaries. It doesn't matter how much grace you give yourself, how much kindness, if those around you are not aware. And I am certain that if you ask a question to your friends, loved ones, or partners about, I need time, but I never get enough time, I need time. And then what you never asked. You never asked, you never said you needed it. We believe that those in our lives are mind readers. Who cares a mind reader? Because I can make a lot of money off of you if you are, let me know. Mind reader, right? And then we harbor this anger towards that person, saying, you don't think about me. You don't allow me. They don't have to allow you. You have to set those boundaries. And the way you set boundaries is by communicating, saying to someone, every day at this time, this is my self-care. And for, faculty, closing your door. I know that the faculty here at this university, your doors, your phone, it's constantly open, and it's great and it's wonderful. It's not okay. Right? The need is great, and someone is always going to need. But you will deplete yourself. There will be nothing left of you, and then the person who really needs you, when they do walk to the door, you're a little short with them. Because you didn't set the boundaries. You didn't set that, okay, when my door is closed, it's for me. It's not that I don't want to be there for you, but I need to refuel and regenerate myself. Right? So we have to set boundaries. If we do that with our words, communicating in a kind way, in a clear way, this is what I need. It's not that I don't want to be there for you. It's not that I'm being selfish. I just need this so I can be my optimal self. Commit. Construct. I love that word. Yes.
I read a book titled with that title when I was in college. Because I fit all of those moves. All of them.
And you ask yourself, what's the purpose? Does it make people love you more? Does it make But that's why we do it, right? We think, well, if I give more, if I give until I drop, or if I drop to my knees, they'll love me more. And once you recognize that those who love you will love you, regardless. And those who love you for what you do, you may definitely need to set boundaries with them.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I'm loved for my ex, then that's not okay. Right? So, just allowing yourself that, right? And committing. When I say commit, we use that word so passively. What does commitment mean? I need some feedback. What does commitment mean? You're all musicians here, so you know what commitment means.
Well, commitment. I have made a statement that I'm going to stick to this. I'm going to do this, regardless what. So I'm within this. I come with this to stay to the end.
To stay till it's done.
Yeah.
Till it's done.
Yeah.
To stay till it's done. What else? Who else has another definition of commitment? Yes.
I want to say throw your whole passion into it. And so that it's not just the time, but I mean, like 150, you're talking about musicians, 150%, not just 100.
You throw 150% into your art. Into your art. Do you throw 150% into you?
No.
No. We don't get enough sleep. We don't eat right. We don't allow ourselves that space, right? The list is long. The list is very long, right? Anyone else wants to give it there?
I was gonna say like a determination to succeed, or like as we were saying, to finish.
Determination, right? So when I talk about let's get started, right? The determination, I'm going to do this. I want you to say that when you think about self-care, I'm going to do this.
Prioritizing, sincerely prioritize.
Right? You have to prioritize it. We prioritize, when we go to work, we set that time up. We prioritize when we do different things. We prioritize all these things, right? We even make time, which is a good thing. Not a lot of time. We even make time to sleep, right? We make time. We have put into our day mealtime. We're committed to eating. So let's eat a little more, right? I commit to my 3 meals and snacks, okay? But we are committed. We make time for things that matter. Do you matter?
You should. You should.
Right.
We should.
We should.
You should matter. You commit to everything else in your life, in your day, but you should matter. And it's not being selfish. It's not. And anyone who tells you that, I need you to challenge them. Because like I said before, when we do self-care, it makes us happier. It allows us to have more deeper relationships, connect more with people so we're not feeling so lonely.
I'm sorry, I have a question about that. So I talk to my mother and I tell her, you know, you need to make time for yourself. But she always throws out a complaint of how she can't, and there's always busy, and you don't know what it's like to be a mom, and I have to do this. It's like, what do you say to them? How do you challenge them to make sure that they do take that time that they need?
And you're right? So because we don't, telling that person, right, reminding them how important they are to you, right? Reminding them or letting her know what's most important to me is the time we spend together. Not all these things that you have to do this busy work. Here's what we all learn. No matter how much or how busy or how filled your day is, when the sun rises tomorrow, there's just as much to be done. And letting your mother know that, you know, priority that you need her to model for you what self-love looks like. That she is setting the example. That if she was to see you in your life commit and prioritize everyone the same way, would it be okay? It's easier for us to, you know, take the position when we see someone not doing self-love. Oh, you need to do more self-care, more self-love, and we give that grace to everybody else, but we never give it to ourselves. So I would try to take her out of herself because she can't see it, and let her focus on her daughter and say, if I was to live this life, would that be okay? Because you're setting the standard. You're modeling for me, and I can fall into this very same pattern. And hopefully, when we step outside of ourselves and we look at what someone else is doing, it may help us to develop a little more insight and even ask them the question, why are you doing this? Why, again, why do we do these things? Why do we overextend ourselves? Because we feel that people will love us, or they will stop loving us, or I don't have a purpose if I'm not doing for everyone. And what is my purpose? Right? So finding something interest that you like, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Any questions, thoughts?
I think it's also, sometimes, how we grow up and the guilty feelings that we have because, it could be religious or some other way that, we feel that we always have to care for, human beings over the neighbor instead of really taking care of ourselves first. That we perceive it as a selfish act, which is not.
It's not. No, it's not a selfish act, right, to take that time out. And here, like I said, our culture has created these things where you are constantly working, you're constantly, whether it's your civic or, your community service, you're constantly doing stuff for other people, but at what cost? At what cost?
I saw my father talking about modeling.
Mm-hmm.
Being the seventh child of 10 children, being chosen as the leader of the family, and the smart one, and the one that worked and did everything for everybody else. And really compromised myself. But I saw this as a model. And so he saw that I was doing the same as he was doing. And he said to me one day, you're going to have to take care of the family the same way I've done. And I pulled back and said, wait. I said, yes, I'm going to take care of them, but I'm going to teach them how to take care of themselves first.
And that's a lifelong
And that's a
lesson.
lifelong, because I'm still fighting the modeling that I've been shown. And yet, I'm still with the idea of, yeah, I'm gonna help you to a certain point, young man or young lady, they're telling you, but I still feel the guilt. If they don't make it, if they don't, and that was, I've had to be.
And why do we think we're so important that someone's success or failure is based on us? We all do it.
Yeah, we all do it, yeah.
We all do it. If I'm not there to do it, they'll never eat. Or if I'm not there to tell them what they need to do, it won't happen. That's the ego talking, but like you said, you were modeled. You were brought up to be, you were going to take the mantle. You were going to take it, and you were, because if you didn't, the family would fall apart. And we all have people in our family, we know those people who are the rescuers, right? And that's what they do, and you know, they don't really like it. You don't really like it.
One of the mistakes I make, and I say, I'm not saying nobody people experiences frequently, but you know, in my situation, my family, first one to go back, first one to stay away, that's what I do. And I model that for my younger siblings, even some of my older ones. But when circumstances come about, even to my parents, and everyone's too young to do something about it. So, even yourself, not only takes a lot of time. I mean, it really takes a lot of time. They're down there, they're far away. You gotta make a lot of time there to make sure that they're okay. If not, I'll be young enough to just not do okay.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, right? And there are different dynamics in our families where, you know, yes, sometimes we have to sacrifice and do that, but there comes a point where they have to know that you can't carry it. There's a Disney movie out in Kanto. Has everybody seen Kanto? Under the Surface, right? Have you listened to the words of that song? Right? Exactly. I just watched it before I came. But that's my favorite part of the song. You really, you know, it's if she just told her family that I can't carry all this burden. I can't. But this feeling is if I don't do it, what's going to happen? If I don't take care of it, what's going to happen? And that's not okay. That's not a healthy stance. And there's only so much you can do to save friends, loved ones. It's only so much. And your responsibility goes this much, not this much. Right? So there are moments in your family's life where yes, you cannot turn your back, but you cannot be the only go-to. And it's okay saying to people, I can't be the only go-to. And letting yourself know that, you know, you were able to kind of pull yourself up and make it away. It didn't make you any less than you had to struggle. Right? And so our family, you know, those who tend to lean on us more, a little bit of struggle, a little bit of adversity, it's going to make it stronger. It won't break them. It really won't break them. And if they fall and they scrape their knee, what happens when you scrape your knee?
You kiss it and say, it's okay.
I'm sorry?
And say, get back up.
You cry,
Right.
you
Put
look
a
at the
Band-Aid on
bruise,
it.
and you get back up. Get a Band-Aid and you get back up. There are some life lessons that are not going to break people. It's not going to. But you don't have the control. You cannot control everything. And everybody, and you know, like I said, communicating to family what you can and cannot do.
I think that I understand what you're saying. Sometimes we feel that we are so vital to somebody. You know,
Vital is the word.
Vital. And I'm talking about my mom in this case. So I'm in that age group where now I'm, you know, the caregiver for my mom. And, you know, it's like I always have to be in contact with the people that care for her or anything that happens to her. And what if I cannot answer the phone? What if I cannot be there for her? And it makes me feel so guilty and responsible. So if you feel like that, for example, about a younger sibling, you know, somebody that, I don't know, you're afraid they're gonna get in trouble or they may not do what they need to do, then we take that as, like more important than many other things. But, I am learning that there is very little I can control.
It bruises the ego.
There's very little, that I can control, and we can help others, but, their success ultimately is not gonna be up to us. That's reality. We can help, but it's not gonna be,
And teaching those individuals in our lives that we're human too. We're human too. We can't do all, we can't be all. And we should never, encourage that perspective that you are the fixer, right? We're fixers for ourselves. You can assist, you can encourage, you can support, but you're not the fixer.
I've heard stories of people saying, when my father walked away, I've never seen him since. Well, my mother walked away from the family. And I wondered, I said, well, why did they walk away? Did they come to a point where they just couldn't do it anymore and did not know how to ask for the help? And rather than doing something rash, walked away. Is that a bad thing or is that a good thing?
That's an unhealthy way.
It's an unhealthy
It's
way.
an unhealthy way, and if they had just communicated what the need was, if they just said something. What happens is when we don't communicate those needs, we do those rash things, people stop answering phone calls, and we're like, I really needed you, right? But if you would just set boundaries with them, with people, or those who tend to depend on you, and say, I can't always be there for you. It's just not possible.
Nadine, I think what you just hit and what Mr. Rayam just said, like when it gets desperate enough, you just walk away because it's the only thing you know how to do. But it's almost like it's the same thing in relationships, right? I mean, I'm just thinking, whether it's partners or for that matter, children and parents, it's the communicate. I mean, I love the word you just used, communication. And I think that's just it. We all assume everybody knows your feelings, your inner thoughts. As you said, we're not mind readers. But it's the same thing here. And so if we just communicate it, because otherwise we do let it fester to the point, right, where we indeed, the only way out is like, leave. That's it.
Absolutely.
I want to go back just a little bit, back to time. I know you said before, society puts a time frame on a lot of us, especially young adults or on our 20s. And I'm still learning, and I kind of like finally realized that there's not so much of a time limit on how to get places. So what do you have to say for that? And how do you, what's the word I'm looking for? Understand and move in that situation without letting society grasp us and be like, you have to do this at this time, and this has to go here. Like, how do you?
Life is not a destination. It is a journey. Right?
That's
And
good.
we do unfairly set these time frames for people. You gotta go to college with this, and then you gotta do this, and by this age, this has to happen. And if you're not, and even with aging, this is expectation of what you should be doing at this age, or should not be doing. And it has to be a movement. It has to be a cultural movement where because we do it, I do it sometimes. Oh, well, how old are you? Why are you not doing it? We have to pause and realize that life is a journey. It is not a destination. Everybody, we're all unique individuals, and we achieve different things at different times, and not to look at the Joneses and look and say, well, look what they have, or look what they've achieved. You have to be able to be comfortable with yourself and letting people know, I'm on a journey. There's no arrival time for me to reach this stop. I'm on a journey, and to allow you the grace to be able to, take your time. Take your time in your time. And I get it, you don't want to be too and I don't want to mistake it while doing absolutely nothing, right? But you're emotional, but there's no speed that has to be done with things.
So when you, like me, I am talented in many things, and I want to do so many things. It's like, how do you what is it? Keep in order, not keep in order, but just take time for each
Balance.
one with balancing
Find a
it.
balance.
How do you balance all of that when you want to do so much? And people are saying, you have some people saying, oh, you have the time. You're young, you still have time. And then you have other people, no, you don't. You need to have a career at this age. So how do you balance all the things that you want to do without losing yourself and waking up at an age and you're like, dang, I didn't get to do that. And that's what I wanted to do, but I did this. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Good
So
question.
vision boards. Has anybody
Ooh.
ever used a vision board? Right?
I want
You
to.
don't want to lose the momentum of your dreams. But if you have a vision board, right? The vision board will keep you mindful of what those many talents you have and what you want to do. And setting time to meditate on that vision, because you may have a lot of talents, but this may not be the time to develop that talent, right? Or this may be the time to develop this one talent. We have, say we have the monkey mind, and we're jumping from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and then we're like, oh, and then it just converges on you, and you feel overwhelmed, and you're just, I can't do this. I'm not good enough, because everything doesn't have to be done now, right? It doesn't have to be done now, but be in the now. And when I say that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, be in the present, be in the moment, right? Allow allow your space, your energy to dictate to you what you need to be doing. But being very clear, when you're jumping from one thing to the next, because what there's another saying, a jack of all, master of none. That's the saying, right? And what happens is when you're trying to cultivate so many things at one time, you don't master anything. And you continue to feel unfulfilled, unhappy, dissatisfied. So just being in the moment, we're going to talk about mindfulness and all that, just being in the moment and being present.
So along with time constraint on being pressured by society to finish, there's this shaming in enjoying things that you enjoy doing, and allowing that to be a form of self-care. You have to shed certain things that you enjoy because you're older.
Yeah, and I'm against that, right? There's no definition. This should, aging is a personal experience, right? How we age, how we, go through our lives. Don't allow people to say, well, that's only what kids do, right? Oh, only kids jump rope. I don't know. But, only kids, picking up rollerblading at a certain age, it's a risky sport, but you don't, because what happens is that you live defined by someone else's standards, and that leads to unhappiness. Live defined by your standards. Live defined by what you want to do. And we have to stop, because we do it, right? We perpetuate all that too. Well, you're too old to do that, or you're not old enough to do that, right? We have to catch ourselves, because we are also part of societal's problem.
As we talked about, what are some things that prevented us from doing things like self-care? Society not just be wrong.
Society's definition of who you should be, right? Those constraints, absolutely.
Well, I just wanted to share to what Ms. Hicks said, and I hope my husband doesn't mind, but I don't think he will. He always calls himself a big kid at heart, and I love that about him. I think I sometimes, I do kind of sometimes think, well, I'm too old for this, can't do that, and he doesn't care, and I think it's wonderful. I'll never forget, we were at a summer festival where I was teaching, and he came along that summer, and he was well into his 50s, well into it. And he was playing ultimate frisbee with these 14 to 17-year-olds. And he was winning. And I just remember at one point, one kid yelled, they didn't remember his name. It was like, don't throw that to that man in the yellow shirt, because he was better than they were in his age, running. But I love that, because like you said, it doesn't matter whether you're 80, 87 or 17. Enjoy life.
enjoy life, right? Doing those things that make you happy. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Well, you know, if you sit and just watch the string of commercials on TV, the messages that they send us, be perfect, look this way, do that, eat this, think that, and you're like, oh my God,
Right.
I gotta do all of that to be,
Yeah.
be perfect. To be perfect. It's mind-boggling. It's crazy. And many of us try to do just that.
So we're going to commit to, we're just gonna do it, right? We're gonna commit to self-care, where the theme is just do it. Let me get Nike there. Next, please. Okay, so what are some of the things that we could do to for self-care? What are some of the things we can do? What are some of the things we would, and everybody can give their own thing, what they would like to do that will bring them joy?
I need to start dancing.
Ooh, I love that.
I've always danced all my life.
Mm.
I love it.
Yeah,
And it's good for
it's
you.
good for you.
Even with my bad knees, if I start dancing, you will know I
And you listen, dancing isn't just about, you can dance in many ways. You can be in your seat dancing, you know,
Always.
that's something that brings you joy.
Yes.
Every time you dance,
Yeah.
that's self-care. That's you giving yourself grace and allowing yourself to enjoy that. Enjoy it. What else can you do? What brings you joy? Yeah. Oh, yeah. What brings you joy? Music. Playing music.
My profession is educator for music in school. So once I leave here, I come over here and I do more music. And I get home and I plan for music again. So for me, I think the best thing for me is to just schedule. I'm really big on time, and I care about your time and what you care about mine. I think if I schedule that time, if I know there's nothing in that slot, I might put something in there. So if I schedule time just for you, I think that'll prohibit me from packing up.
And also, for those who are artistically inclined and your work is what is your joy, there's a difference between, I love playing music and I'm working music. So being able to differentiate, you know, how wonderful that, you know, your career is in something that you love. But there's a way to separate, I love music versus I'm working music, okay? Anyone else wants to shoot?
I want to say songwriting. I really enjoy songwriting, and I had slowed down a little bit with all the responsibilities of school and stuff, but I think just getting back in the practice room sometimes, taking some of that time to just work on a song.
It could be 30 minutes. You could say, you know, twice a week for 30 minutes. This is my time, and I'm gonna write some lyrics. I'm gonna bring out what brings me joy.
Mine might be crazy, but I love sitting in a tub, candles, getting my hair done, my nails. It's just an appearance that just helps me, you know, be better. And
Not crazy.
That's beautiful.
I need the song, the mellow music, the bubbles in the bath. That is peace, and it also helps with my body to calm my mind and my body to wind down. To
Commit to it.
yeah.
Commit to it.
I haven't heard anybody say this, but for me, when it's especially on my time, it's therapeutic. Cooking for enjoyment. I love it. It's my, yeah, there you go, Dr. Lee. No, but I mean, it is, and my husband knows, he just leaves me in the kitchen. Don't ask questions. But I mean, as I said, if I'm not like pressed for time, I mean, I love it. And I find it relaxing, just as relaxing as walking on a beach or reading a book. Oh.
What
you trying to cook for us?
And when you're feeling in those moments, when you feel like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed, I want you to remember, right? Remember, each of you, what brings you joy. When you're feeling like, the next person calls me, I'm just gonna lose my mind. You say, wow, I hadn't did it to myself. You know what? Put the little sign up on setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Anyone else wants to share what brings them joy?
Joy is traveling, and that doesn't mean travel far away. Sometimes it's just spending the day in St. Augustine or, somewhere where just, being somewhere else and eating out, Rose.
We're all guilty of that, eating out, aren't we? But it feels good.
Anybody else wants to share what brings them joy? How often do you get to do that? I want you to commit to that. It doesn't have to be a whole day. It could be like 15 minutes. It could be 30 minutes. It could be whatever. But just, I want you to commit to it, right? You guys have given a lot of great, sharing a lot of great ideas about what brings you joy, right?
And there's a fantastic article about nature, the effect that it has on us. And it was by National Geographic, fantastic article. It is called Your Brain on Nature. Well, but it's the effects not just on your brain, but also on your body. And then it is the results of research. So I don't know if maybe you want to share it, Dr. Grace.
I am putting it in the chat right now.
Brain on Nature, and it's on National Geographic. It is a fantastic article.
Right?
Nadine, I just saw in the chat, doing a puzzle gives me joy. What a great, I love that.
Puzzles too. Yeah.
I love puzzles.
I'm working on one right
hours
now.
on a puzzle and just even on those thousands of puzzles, I'll walk by and just finding that one piece is like,
Eureka.
I got one.
Puzzle.
Right?
Yes.
Just what we're doing here right here, rediscovering and rediscovering.
Yeah.
It brings me joy. It brings me that, oh my God, yes, I used to do that. I didn't know that. Why would I rediscover?
Yeah, rediscovery. Yeah. And committing, right? The whole purpose of this session is to get you to start thinking.
Yeah.
That self-care doesn't have to be anything expensive. No, it doesn't have to be anything expensive. It can be simple, a puzzle, just, or even, reconnecting with a friend. Someone you haven't seen in a while. Oh yeah, reconnected, just, I'm like, oh my God, why don't we do this more? Why don't we spend more time, just connecting?
Well, and what Dr. Lee also said about traveling, it doesn't have to be far away. During COVID especially, and especially when it was really, really bad, but still tenuous. My husband and I started doing these staycations literally 10 minutes down from our house, and everybody thought we were nuts. But just, because I wasn't at home. I was in we rented this little condo. I mean, it was really inexpensive if we're talking vacation. And I was not in my setting because I know I'd be cleaning, cooking, whatever, doing work at the computer. And then we were on the ocean and it was our time. It was just fantastic. So yeah, just being away from your regular routine, I guess.
Scheduling that once a month. I mean, when I say schedule, leave it on your calendar, right? Where so no one else can put it there. You're like, oh yeah, no, I'm busy. Right? I'm busy that time. Sorry.
And there's so many, we're so fortunate in Florida. We have so many trails. Where you can go and ride your bike, and things like that. And you can do that with your partner, with your brothers or sisters. I know there's one in Bonell that is not that far. My husband and I, we ride bikes or we walk. And it is just being out there. It's just beautiful and feeling like it's a little trip.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, you guys gave great ideas, and I hope for everyone who's checking in virtually that I hope this is triggering for you some things you can do. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be something simply, just being, I love mornings. I'm a morning person, and just that moment, that hour in the morning where everyone is still asleep and the house is quiet, is like.
Yes.
Silent, right? Next, please. Okay, so as I talk about that, mindfulness, right? It's a word that's being thrown around, it's that fancy word, and I know people are like, what's mindfulness? When you think about the word mindfulness, what do you think? This is real fair, but
With intention or purpose.
intentional purpose, just being present in the moment, right? Reading deeply, and just sensing the sounds you hear in the room, the cool air of the room, things that keep you here and in the moment, not with your mind racing on the next thing I have to do or where I have to be, but just being and listening to your heartbeat. Has anyone here ever listened to their heartbeat? In the tub, you can do it. In the tub, you can hear your heartbeat. If you haven't heard your heartbeat, I'm giving you an invitation to do so today. It is a beautiful thing. It is being present and in the moment where nothing else matters and you are just in that space, in that moment with yourself. Okay. So you can do all of that stuff. And it works great, wonderful. And many of you shared today some really challenging experiences in life that makes it really hard for you to really carve that self-care out for you, carve that time. Talk to a therapist. Society's getting more and more comfortable with that. I know in the African American community, it was taboo, right? I'm not crazy. I think anyone who doesn't have a therapist is crazy. Okay? You're the ones I worry about. Me too. Right? Not people who are with a therapist, right? Those are people who have insight, awareness, and are actively, intentionally working on whatever that issue is. So if you feel, and it's also an opportunity for self-care. For my clients that I work with, I'm like, this 45, 50 minutes is yours.
I just wanted to speak on therapy a little bit because I've had experience with going to a therapist and stuff.
Bravo.
And I would find myself a lot of times leaving every session probably crying or going to a session crying. But it's they say we cry to release. And a lot of times it's some of those really older burdens that we don't even realize that we're still carrying, but they come back to mind every now and then. We don't realize sometimes how much of a toll that does take on our daily lives.
It's the holding in. It's when we have things, when the body takes in something that's toxic and it's not good for us, what happens? Bad things happen, right? It's coming out one way or the other. One way or the other. When the body takes in something that's toxic, it will put it out. When we emotionally hold on to things that are toxic, it stays and it festers and it shows itself in unhealthy ways. So we need to, therapy is a great way for us to really tap into, am I holding on to something that's toxic? Something that's not healthy for you? Yes.
I growing up was in and out of therapy. However, I always had struggles with opening up to people. So therapy, never worked for me. I would always leave. I would say I'm okay, but I knew I wasn't okay. And that was just growing up in a household where, you don't tell your business to someone else, And I realized how much that kind of affects me now. And I was just explaining to my vocal coach that I'm needing a therapist. I'm having breakdowns out of nowhere because of trauma that I haven't dealt with. And I tell myself, I need a therapist. I need one. But I feel like I haven't got to the point where I can just walk in and be like, help me.
Yeah.
So I think
It just takes time.
Yeah, it takes time.
I always think therapy is one of those things. We always feel like we're going to walk in the room and we're going to connect with you. And that's not the case, right? It's like seeing a pair of jeans on someone like, oh, those are really nice jeans, and you get them, they don't fit the same, right? You don't commit to those. You're like, well, let me find one that looks right on me. So therapy is a personal experience, and you have to feel that connection. And I always tell people, you don't like me, if I'm not the right fit, you don't feel the connection, please find someone, because it's not about the therapist, it's about you. And if you haven't found one that you've connected with, keep trying. Don't give up. Don't give up. Keep looking, because it's not a one-shop deal. It really isn't. I've had people who are like, yeah, I don't really like you so much. I'm like, that's okay, it's not about me, right? Or there's those who really love you, but it's not about me, it's about you. And you have to never, ever, 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 ever give up on that, because we don't give up on anything else that easy, right? If you would try different restaurants, if you like a certain kind of cuisine, you'd try it, or well, so-and-so said that was good, it wasn't good, but you would still keep trying. You wouldn't give up because you had one bad experience with like an Italian restaurant or a Caribbean restaurant. You're like, well, I'm still open to trying. And I think therapy is just like that. You have to be open to, okay, this didn't work for me, but it doesn't mean that it won't work. Because there are a lot of people who do benefit from it. And it's something you can set up. Okay, so self-care, right, is how do you say I love you to yourself?
That's the wrong way.
But, yeah, so how do you say I love you to yourself? Self-care. We tell everybody in our lives that we have self-care, that we love them, but we don't show ourselves. We show everybody else that we love them and we'll do this and we'll sacrifice this, but we don't tell ourselves. And when you don't do self-care, you're not telling yourself that you love you. You're not. And that's not okay. It's not okay. So the next step, what I would like to do, let's go back one more, let's just go back. I had told everybody that I wanted us to write affirmation statements, right? So I'm gonna hand out, and step out of the camera for you. I'm gonna hand out to everybody some little decorative post-its. I know everyone at home doesn't have them. Yeah. And you can pick one that you like here. And I want everyone to start thinking about, pick one that you like. I have a talk one, I have a heart one, and here's a star one. And pick one that you like, because I want this to be in your space. You're gonna stick it up on your wall, put it, I don't know, wherever, make it a bookend or whatever. And I need everyone just to take, to think about a way for you to give yourself self-care. Writing up composing a positive statement that you want to say to yourself every day. And every time you see it, you're going to be reminded that you have to love yourself. So that's why you can pick the little talkie thing, little flower. We have cute ones here, which you will hear, you will get one too. But for those who are here, you can use that. So I just want to give everybody, I kind of went over and I apologize. Let's just use the last 5 minutes as an opportunity to really come up with a statement to yourself about your commitment to loving yourself and taking time for yourself. It can be if you already have a positive affirmation that you say already and you love it, write that on there. And I need this to be either in your bathroom mirror or somewhere that you're reminded daily that you need to love yourself. Okay? And before I close, is there anyone who would like to share their affirmation statement?
This is a new day to do it again and enjoy the journey.
I love it. Yes.
Sometimes being selfish.
Nadine, can you repeat that so that the virtual audience can hear it? Sorry, because I don't think the mic is picking that up.
Okay. Yes.
Will you repeat it?
Yes.
Sorry.
This is a new day. This is a new day to do it again and enjoy the journey.
This is a new day to do it again and enjoy the journey, just so that everybody can hear it online. What a great statement. And Brishan, sorry, what did you say?
Sometimes being selfish is not being selfish.
Sometimes being selfish is not being selfish. Love it.
Mine is kind of a lot, different ones.
I love it.
My first one is you are growing every day. It is okay to cry. You are not always going to be okay, and that is fine. You are loved. You are beautiful.
Beautiful.
That's great.
I love that.
That's great.
Thank you.
You are doing the best that you can, and it's making a big difference.
Beautiful. Would anyone else like to share? Yes.
You will set boundaries for yourself and respect them.
Love it. Love it. Would anyone else like to share?
Well, I didn't write it down, but I think it often. You're not perfect, but love yourself for who you are.
Beautiful. Anyone else? I just want to thank, one more.
I'm beautiful just the way I am, before and everything else.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
that's beautiful. Anyone else would like to share? You all did beautiful. Those, I want to thank you all for sharing with me. Those statements were powerful and meaningful. I want them to, they moved me. I'm sure they moved you as you wrote them. Please, don't put this in your back pocket. I need it to be someplace prominent, that when you look at it and be reminded, you wrote that to yourself. That was you saying, I love you to yourself. I want to thank everyone. You've just been really wonderful. I appreciate all that you've shared and your openness and willingness to share. You are now ready to engage in self-care. You're going to commit, right? And you're going to do it because you deserve it. Thank you. And
Nadine, thank you so much. It was great. So just for our virtual audience and audience here, we're running like just a couple minutes late. So let's take 5 minutes if it's okay. Help yourself to the refreshments there and just stretch. And we're going to bring on our next guest, Mr. Mark Anthony Wright, in about 5 minutes. Thank you. Mark, I hope you were able to hear what we were trying to do there. And
Yes.
Fantastic. So if you don't mind, we're running about 5 minutes late, but we're going to let everybody stretch.
Yes.
And then we're going to bring you on, introduce you, and let you have your moment then. So just hang out for a couple moments. Thanks so much.
No problem. Take care.
Okay, let's put the music on. Hang on. Okay. So I think if everybody is ready, we are going to begin, and it is my pleasure to introduce our next. Is something on?
Oh, did you want to?
No, I don't think I need to. Our in-house audience, if we could take some seats, please. We're going to begin our workshops. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Mark Anthony Wright, who happens to be also our wonderful instructor at Bethune-Cookman University. And a hidden gem, I think. Am I right, Mr. Wright? I had no idea that he was such a fabulous instructor of Tai Chi, Therapeutic Tai Chi. And so it is my pleasure to introduce him. Please check out your PDF booklets or printed booklets here in the house. And I don't want to take further away from him. By the way, get ready. You're actually going to get to do some Tai Chi. We're going to finally get to move our bodies. So I am just going to pass this on to Mr. Anthony Wright. And I'm going to also, should I share the PowerPoint? Should I give the PowerPoint
Yes.
on the board? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's do this then. And then you can direct me as to what you want me to do. And I'm going to cut myself out.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Grace. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to be a part of this program. I know when we first talked about it, when you mentioned it to me last year, and I accepted to do it, I didn't realize it was coming up so quick. So, but I think we're prepared. I want to be able to share as much as possible based on my experience of Tai Chi and this particular system of Tai Chi that utilizes the 5 elements. So first, I just like to start off with, kind of giving some insight into the word Tai Chi, because most people hear about it. You may see it stated as Tai Chi Chuan, which that last part ties in the fighting component of Tai Chi as a martial arts application. But the reason I didn't add it to this particular definition is because I'm really approaching this from a healing arts perspective. And as we go into it a little bit more, you'll understand why I'm looking at it from the healing arts perspective. But just the words Tai Chi, when you break it down, it talks about supreme, Tai being supreme or grand or great, and Chi being the ultimate or extreme or what's on top. And there's also translations of Chi being, air, energy, and life force, which is the essence of all life. So the one thing that I take from this whole concept of Tai Chi and the way that it was designed and developed, because it talks about going from Wu Chi, which is stillness, into Tai Chi, which is movement or motion. So looking at that movement or that motion, and then looking at the translation with it being supreme ultimate, I mean, when you think about something that's ultimate, it's already at the top or it's at this highest level. So now when you start talking about supreme, adding supreme to that, my concept of that is really you actually going into the mind of God, the essence of all life, the essence of all things. So that's my perspective on how I view Tai Chi. And the other component of Tai Chi, it operates on these principles or the philosophy of the yin and the yang, which is that complementary opposites and that balance and order that harmonizes everything in life. We can go to the next slide. Within this yin and yang, I wanted to show that it's really operating off of the principle of the law of polarity. And if you understand what the law of polarity is, it talks about everything being dual. There's different poles to everything. You have a positive pole and you have a negative pole. You have the masculine, you have the feminine, you have the hot, you have the cold. So it's this interplay between the duality of these polarities. But within each polarity, there's a little bit of the other polarity. So within the yin, you see that there's a little bit of yang. And within the yang, there's a little bit of the yin. So that's why I look at them as complementary opposites. But the polarities, when you really understand it and how it applies to the practice of Tai Chi, I think you'll get a better understanding of why Tai Chi is so effective, just understanding this principle of polarity. You can go to the next slide. So in this slide, as I talked about the polarities, we as human beings are electrical beings. So we are constantly conducting electrical charges within our body, just like a battery. Every battery, has a positive and negative charge. And if you look at this particular slide on the left, you see the polarities even within the hands and the feet. So knowing that and understanding that lets us know that, a good example is, many of us have touched a doorknob or something and got electrical shock. Well, that tells you that we're electrical beings and that we have these polarities within our fingers and body. But on another level, there are energies. As electrical beings, we don't just emit those electrical charges, within ourselves or at the cellular level. We also emit it expanding outside of ourselves. So all of us have some measure of an energy field. Some are stronger than others. Some expand wider than others. But if you understand the concept of these antinomical planes and how this ties into the polarities, you really begin to see what I'm talking about in terms of the actual benefits from a health standpoint with Tai Chi. So if you look at the diagram on the right, where it's breaking down the body into these 3 different planes. So that coronal plane is like, putting a glass and cutting through your body, where you show the front side of yourself and you separate it from the back side. So if you separate yourself from that coronal perspective, the front side is going to be the positive polarity and the back side is going to be the negative polarity. Now, if you separate yourself from the center, that sagittal plane division, where that midline is, then you're looking at the right side and the left side. And from that perspective, the right side is going to be the positive polarity and the left side is going to be the negative polarity. And then also the last part is that midsection, that axial or transverse plane, where you're separating the body from the top and the bottom. So the bottom would be the negative polarity and the top would be the actual positive polarity. Now, why is this significant? It's significant because if you understand these polarities and then you understand the movements of Tai Chi and how it's an interplay between these polarities in the body, you begin to see as you go through the different motions of Tai Chi, you're going in and out of different planes. And a good example of anybody that knows about Tai Chi, one of the exercises or not forms, but one of the steps in Tai Chi is cloud hands, or wave hands like clouds. And if you see just that motion of that wave hands like clouds, you'll see how it interplays between the positive and the negative polarities of the body. And most of the Tai Chi forms and sets play through this positive and negative polarity of the body. That's what generates life. That's what creates longevity. That's what creates activity. Just walking. That's why just walking in and of itself. I mean, when you think about it, it's really a divine creation, the human body, in the way it's set up, because just the movement of walking, you have this interplay between the positive and the negative poles, which actually can cause you to continue to live just by that movement and that generation. We can go to the next slide. Now, this particular slide, I just wanted to identify the 5 elements because the exercise set that I'm going to be demonstrating is related to these 5 elements. Now, 5 elements is tied to the ancient traditional Chinese medicine practices, where they looked at the body and identified these different elements and tied it to different organ systems. So here you see liver and gallbladder is tied to the wood element. The heart is tied to the heart and the small intestine is tied to the fire element. The spleen and the stomach is tied to the earth element, and so forth and so on. And then they also associate these elements with different emotions, different tastes, different directions. So it's a whole system. But the key that I want you to look at here is this generative process. So when you see this a lot of times show up, you'll see it in a generating and a deconstructing state with the arrows. But from the generative perspective, where one arrow is going to another arrow element, what it's talking about is how one feeds the other. So liver or wood, you see the arrow that is pointing to fire. So wood feeds fire. And then fire breaks down and feeds earth. And then earth produces metals or minerals. And then those minerals produce or feed water. And then water in turn feeds wood to grow plants and trees. So that's that whole generative cycle. And then there's also the other cycle that I'll go into a little bit more later. The next slide. So this is based on a system that I've studied called Shinmen Dao, which means spirit gateway. And within this system, the primary components or the base or foundation of the system is the 5 elements. You study 3 different arts, Tai Chi, Xing Yi, and Bagua, which are 3 internal martial arts systems. But the 5 element exercise set that we use, that you first start off with, and its main application is for healing and health, regeneration. So those elements, as I mentioned before, they have directions associated with it. They have a number associated with it. So that means a number of times that you do it or reps that you do. It has a yin organ and a yang organ that we mentioned. But the key to this is just understanding how each of these elements actually unfold for your health. And then they also have a martial arts application as well. So when you learn the single set of the 5 elements for health purposes, then when you have a 2-person set, it applies for the martial application. And that's really demonstrated in that destructive component of the 5 elements. You can go to the next slide. So I wanted to just point out some of these concepts because these are essential to the Shinmen Dao system. And the soft-centered, circular, rhythmical, that's something that you constantly play out in all of the exercises that you do within Tai Chi, whether it's you study in Xing Yi, which Xing Yi is more of a linear internal martial arts. It was really designed for the military. So it's a little more yang in its energy, and it's a little more direct or linear. However, you still have to keep the principles of soft-centered, circular, rhythmical even within that. And that in and of itself is a study. So that's part of the concept of anytime you're doing exercise, you want to approach it from this perspective of being soft, being centered, being circular, even in the small motions where you think there's a stop or a pause. There is no breaks and pauses. It's a small circular motion that is really directing that particular energy. And then this other concept, I'll go back. This other concept of chi flows to the area of greater surface tension, that's a key to know because that ties into like when you're doing qigong exercises and you're doing some stretches or you have different postures that you're showing, that slight tension, just a little turn of the wrist, relaxed turn, is generating energy to those areas of surface tension. So that's where the blood will flow, that's where the chi will flow, just going through those different postures in these Tai Chi motions. And there again, on the bottom, you talk about the controlling factors and the generative factors, which is much more deeper when you get into Chinese traditional medicine, because you can actually use these principles and concepts to heal people in terms of if they have more, say their liver is overactive, which is a wood element, so what controls wood is water. So they might diagnose something in that water realm of element to neutralize the effects of the liver, or I mean the effects of that particular dis-ease, because a lot of the dis-ease is really just the imbalance. So when you try to balance something out, you want to either give it some energy or neutralize the effects of it being overpowered. So that's where this creation cycle and this deconstruction cycle can be used for healing arts. And then the last thing, this particular system is really a spiritual based system in its essence, because it teaches you to contemplate in everything. If you think about it, if you go back to what we talked about with Tai Chi being the supreme ultimate, I mean, it just takes you back to the spirit, to the one mind, to the oneness. And so we try to be conscious in everything that we do, you know, how our spirit forms our intention, how our intentions directs the energy that we're bringing, how that energy leads to actions, and that action ultimately reflects that spirit. So anything that you do, those actions will reflect that spirit. So if we see a spirit that is healthy, it's going to be reflected in those actions. And all activity starts from that healthy state of mind, that healthy spirit. So that's where true health actually comes into play. It all starts with that spirit and that mind, and that's what neutralizes the actual effects of any disease or imbalance. So with that, Dr. Grace, we can share the demonstration. We're going to do a demonstration of these 5 elements, and I'll start off showing some joint and gland exercises that anybody can do just to kind of warm up their bodies. And then these 5 elements, we'll explain them, and then we'll have some question and answers after that.
That's terrific. Thank you, Mr. Wright. And I just want to encourage everybody in the room, especially, so I want everybody to get up in the room, spread out a little bit so you can still see the screen, and everybody who's at home watching, please stand up, because I want you to be able to do this with Mr. Wright as we play this pre-recorded portion of his demonstration.
So before we begin, what I want to do is just 2 sets of exercises. One is a warm-up set, and the other is the 5-element set of Tai Chi. We'll begin by starting with what we call simple joint and gland exercises. These joint and gland exercises really are designed to loosen up your joints. And you have mainly 7 major joints: your ankles, your knees, your hips, your wrists, your elbows, your shoulders, and your neck. And that's what we want to do to be able to loosen up those particular joints, as well as be able to stimulate the glands in the process. So they're very simple. You can do them standing or you can do them sitting. And the first exercise is just putting on your toes and rolling around in each direction with your ankle. So that's loosening up those ankles. When you change, you want to change and go to the opposite direction. And you can do that on both sides. And you just relax and do it. You change. Then you want to go up to your knees. So before we do the knees though, there's another, and this is that helps you with balance, and you can do it with your ankles as well. I want to stand back a little bit. And you can do your ankles and your wrists at the same time. This helps with balance. As well as stimulating those glands. You can widen it up for your knees. So that's working both the ankles and the knees. But the next one, specifically for the knees, It's just knee rotations, soft knee rotation. And I know earlier we talked about the principles of soft, centered, circular, and rhythmical. And that's how you want to do all of these exercises. Soft, centered, circular, and rhythmical. So we've done the ankles, we've done the knees. Now we want to do the hips. And we start off with small circles. Rotating the hips in one direction, change, rotating them in another direction. Want to take some bigger circles. Change. Then you want to take larger circles. Support your back when you do this. Get a good circular stretch. Change. Now we worked our ankles, we worked our knees, we worked our hips, now our wrists. And even though we did our wrists initially with the ankles, this is working the wrists by themselves. And with this, you want to add a little shift and twist. Change the direction. This is what works the wrist. Then you want to work the elbows. Remember, soft, centered, circular, and rhythmic. Change, go in the opposite direction. All while you're shifting and twisting in a relaxed manner. All of this is helping to stimulate your joints and your gland. Then you want to do your shoulders. Start going backwards. Lifting the shoulders, rotating them to the back. Change, reverse. Rotate to the front. Then you can alternate. Rotating to the back. Change. Rotate to the front. Now you want to do your neck. You just want to turn, not forcefully, in a relaxed manner to both sides, stretching the neck and taking a deep breath and holding as you turn. So you inhale, hold it, exhale. Go to the right, inhale, exhale. And you want to do those a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Then you want to go up, inhale, down, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Then you want to rotate slow, gently, soft, centered, circular, rhythmical. You don't want to force anything, just a relaxed rotation, change, go the opposite direction. Excellent. And that's the joint and gland exercise. A lot of times we'll add to that some Qigong, which we'll not do right now, but just some simple stretches you can do to loosen up some more. Another thing we like to do is try to touch our hands, opposite hands in the back, while taking deep breaths, inhaling and exhaling, sometimes turning and stretching. Alternate. Inhale, turn, exhale. So those are some simple warm-up exercises that you can do. All of that's designed to get the circulation going, the flow of chi or energy or your life force. That's what these simple exercises are designed to do. And as I said, you can do many of these sitting in a chair. If you can't stand up, sit in a chair and you're sitting and do your joint and gland exercises. So now we want to go into the 5 elements. And the 5 elements of Tai Chi, 5 elements are tied to traditional Chinese medicine and how they align with the meridians of the body and how each of those meridians align with a certain organ system of the body. In Shinmin Dao, it's specific to certain directions, certain number of repetitions. It's aligned with your yin organ as well as your yang organ. So each of these exercises will stimulate those particular areas when you do it according to the sequence. So I first want to walk through the sequence showing the transitions, because this is a set of exercises that you can do just in one spot, one location, but you're going to be moving in different directions, but you'll end up right in the same spot. So you don't have to have a lot of space to do this particular 5-element set. However, there are transitions that you have to know as you learn this more. But I want to just go through the basics of it for now, so to give you an idea of what it will look like. So you start in what they call Wu Qi. You step out, shifting, twisting. And now you're in the earth state. This is earth. Think about the earth being a ball, and you're circling that ball. Now with earth, the associated direction is north. So when you're doing this, you want to start off north, in the north direction. And the associated number with earth is 5. So that means you want to do them in repetitions or sets of 5. So you can either do 5, you can do 10, you can do 15, but you want to stick to that repetitious number of 5 in that particular set. So that's earth. Then when you go to metal, you're going to shift, hold the ball, turn out, and you go into the direction of the west, which metal is associated with west. This is metal. And I'm trying to do it in a way so you can kind of see it, but it should be soft, centered, circular, and rhythmical to the point where there's no breaks or pauses. But I'm slowing it down and showing you the postures. Here, here. You're coming across the body, it's a turn, and then it's another turn. So you always operating under the yin and yang. It's always opposites. The substantial and the insubstantial is always working at every time. Okay? Then one of the changes to do for the other side, you kind of come back to a T-square with the foot, turn, and then you step out. So you're doing the other direction. So if you see it from this side, you're going to be here, but you're doing it in the other direction. But now that's going to be when you're facing the west. So if I start off here north, I go to middle, west. The number associated with metal is 9. So after I do 9 repetitions on one side, and when I change, I do 9 repetitions on the other side, facing west. When I come to the 9th one, I'm coming back to the north for water. Now we go into water. Now water is, the associated with water is north, the same as with earth, but the number associated with water is the number 6. So once you come back to water, you're going to do 6 of those. And I want to make sure you can see when I lean back, my right foot is lifted up and I'm on my heels. And then I'm stepping up. And water is like a circular, water wheel. Okay? And what's associated with water, the yin organ is the kidneys, and the yang organ is the urinary bladder. With earth, the yin organ is the spleen, and the yang organ is the stomach. And with metal, the yin organ is the lungs, and the yang organ is the large intestine. So now once you do 6 on the one side, stepping back, switching over, coming to the other side, and you do water. Again, you're still facing north, still leaning back, the toes up on the heel. And if you notice, right in here, there's a little circular motion around the kidneys area. So you bring that energy in the kidneys. And also do it like a wave. Instead of just a fist, you can release it like a wave. Okay? So now, once you do your sets of 6 there, you're coming back. Now you're going to be going to the east direction for wood. Come back. Wood is lifting up, stepping out. Punch, circle around. Circle around. And you have that same little circular motion here. That's there. And you notice there's still a little circle in there. Those are details that you don't have to worry about now, but just get the basics of it. Once you do your 8, the transition for wood from here is to step back on the 8, feet go to a T-square, turn in the foot, come back on this side, and step out. Okay? Now you're doing it from the other side. And I'll walk through these transitions again by themselves. I just want to give you the motion right now, okay? Now, from facing east, right? The number associated with wood is 8. That's working on the liver and the gallbladder areas. The yin organ is the liver, and the yang organ system is the gallbladder. All right? So from here, right? When you transition to fire, which is the last element, you're gonna come back and you're gonna be facing south now, okay? And so fire, I'm gonna face north just to show you on this transition. So from here, coming from wood, if I was facing east, coming from wood, and the last one I would come back south, and then step out with my right foot. And on fire, it's just like on water. When you lean back, that right foot, that toe is up and the heel is down. And this is the motion for fire. Fire, the number for fire that's associated with fire is 7. So you want to do 7 repetitions of fire on both sides. Or if you want to do 14 or 21, but it has to be in a series of 7. And the yin organ that this is associated with is the heart, and the yang organ that is associated with is the small intestine. So when you make that change, so if this is number 7, when you come back to a T square, step out on the other side. Okay? So now, once I do 7 from here, now remember I started facing north. I was just showing you fire facing north just to give you an idea. But I would really be back here, right? And when I change, my left foot would be out once I change, facing the south. Now to get back to the north from here to the beginning, once I get to 7, I turn my foot in. I'm hoping you can see it. But I turn my foot in as I come around, turn this other foot back north, then step in, and I'm back to earth. So I'm back in the same spot in position that I was in the beginning. So that's the set of the 5 elements. So I'm gonna walk through them quickly just to go through the transitions. Starting from Wu Qi, step out, earth, you're gonna go, make the right leg substantial, the left insubstantial. So you're putting the weight on here. This is gonna be a yang energy, this is the yin energy. Turn the toes, the left toe out, facing east, okay? That's the first transition. When you come back, when you finish that transition at 9 times, the foot is gonna come back to a T square. You turn this right foot in, you step out to do the other side. Once you come back here, put the foot back to a T square, coming across, facing north again, stepping out to water, okay? Once you do your 6 there, transition to the other side, 1, 2, step out for the other side, okay? Then you transition to wood facing east, you just bring your feet together, lift up and step out, okay? When you step out to wood. When you go to the other side, switching up, wood, okay? When you transition to go south for fire, come back, pull the feet together, go 1, twice, and then step out south.
Okay? When you transition to the other side of fire, step back, switch, step out, the other side. Then when you transition back to earth, turn foot back, step out, and you're back to earth. So that's the 5-element health and wellness healing set. This particular set, not too many people know about it. It's part of the Shinmendao system. And so it's not really promoted much in terms of being online or anything like that. But it was a system that I learned by studying Shinmendao, with Shinmendao being the spirit gateway. And most of the system of Shinmendao is tied to traditional Chinese medicine and the healing arts, as well as the martial applications. So each of these elements, earth, metal, water, wood, and fire, there are martial applications that apply as well. But this is mainly focused on the healing component. So
Sorry, wrong. So sorry about that.
No problem.
Mr. Wright, that was just fantastic.
Did everybody get a chance to do anything?
I was going to say, I know you couldn't see us, but we were all doing it. They were great. They were great. And in the beginning, when you were just doing all the, the gland warm-ups, you couldn't hear us here because we were on mute. But man, were we moaning? Were we not? We were going, oh, and no, because we were all so stiff. This was awesome. And I just want to take a couple of questions maybe from the audience, if that's okay. And maybe using the mic, guys, maybe we can pass it around if you don't mind. Can we, or you go ahead and grab that one. And I'm hoping we have a couple of questions. But I wanted to ask you a very quick question. I know we didn't talk too much about breathing.
Right.
But could you comment a little bit about that? I know you said a few,
Yeah, most of these exercises just your natural breath, inhale and exhale for pretty much for the basics. In different systems, you have different type of breathing techniques that they use based on what they're trying to accomplish. But just to do these exercises, there's no special breath, just your basic inhale and exhale, as you're moving through and progressing through these transitions. You're on mute, Dr. Gray.
Okay, so can you hear? Let's see. We had a little feedback. Can you hear it now?
I can hear you.
Okay, so my name is Adrian. I just had a question. So I saw that we did the exercises in a full cycle, but you were also saying that we could do them separately.
I can't really hear I can't hear that.
Well, you can't hear it on that. So
if you can just repeat the question, if you are able to repeat it.
I'm wondering why is it that we can't hear them?
It's just so far away. It's a distance.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, I just can't hear it.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So let's actually, Deja, come up here and let's kill the mic here. Sorry. And we're gonna have you speak right into the camera here, please. Sorry about that.
So my name is Deja. My question was just, I saw that you said that you could do the different exercises in a certain number. So say, for example, I was having heart problems per se. Would it be appropriate for me to kind of do the fire exercise? Or would I do, like you were saying, that I would do the one that goes into the fire exercise?
Well, that's really a traditional Chinese medical question. And I wouldn't really answer, because each individual is unique and different based on whatever issue they're having. And it would take somebody who's trained in that to be able to first diagnose what you need. So if it was a heart issue, what type of heart issue? That determines what process or methodology would be used. So in general, the general concept you're right in terms of the general concept of you would use something either to generate or give it more energy. Say, for example, if you have low vitality in your organ systems, then what generates into that particular organ system, yeah, you would do that type of exercise. That's the general concept of it. But when you're dealing with specifics of an individual's health related issue, that's more of a traditional medical person that would have to diagnose and really let you know what to do.
Okay.
So these exercise set though is set in the design so that you just reap a benefit overall. It's for overall health and longevity. So it's not really specifically targeting a specific ailment, but to restore balance holistically in the body.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Any other questions in the audience?
Mr. Ram.
I just, Mr. Ram, I'm going to take the question here for you. Go ahead and say it, and then we'll repeat it. Sorry.
I'm currently under acupuncture.
So Mr. Ram is currently doing acupuncture.
And would these exercises be good for me
and incorporate? Yeah, and he's wondering if these exercises would be good for him to incorporate along with acupuncture.
Oh yes. Anytime, any exercise, especially if you're doing acupuncture, because acupuncture is working on meridians. So this is also going to help to balance out the meridians. And again, going back to what I found to be key and significant is understanding of polarities and going through these exercises and alternating those polarities. So there's a modality called educational kinesiology. But in there, it talks about how the right side, if you tap the right hand with the left leg or the left hand with the right leg, or if you just tap shoulders swinging back and forth, all of that's bringing about balance because it's tapping on different polarities and it's restoring balance. And they say it does something to the brain. It's like a spark of electricity in the brain of both hemispheres, and it's constantly building those neural networks within the body that restores balance. So a lot of times we're out of balance based on our environments with all the electricity, the lights, and everything that's in our environment. Sometimes it throws us out of balance. So just simple exercises of tapping the opposites, shoulders or legs of yourself, and going through some of these Tai Chi or Qigong exercises that's doing this cross-lateral movement restores the balance and reduces the anxiety. And so that just complements whatever you're doing with acupuncture.
Thank you. That's great. And if I may pipe in on that too, just because I've had lots of experience with acupuncture and Tai Chi in a personal life health journey, I guess. I couldn't agree more with Mr. Wright, and I'm sure our next also presenter, Dr. Chin, will agree that it can't hurt you. And especially these light therapeutic exercises that he showed. What I loved what you said, Mr. Wright, is that you could also just do them sitting down. I love that idea indeed. And it's just that breathing and just, you may not be able to shift your, from your knees, let's say, but you can do everything else. It just provides fantastic, indeed, as you said, longevity and just wellness. So this was so wonderful to move and also just to hear the philosophy behind it. And again, I hope everybody, especially in our virtual audience, will stay. Well, I know we're running about 7 minutes late, but if it's okay with everybody, I'm just going to go ahead and bring our next presenter on, Dr. Chin, without a break, if that's okay, because I think you're going to just have wonderful. It's just a great segue into what she has to share. So Mr. Wright, thank you so much again. And I hope you can join us for the next session virtually. Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Grace. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. All right. So for our next presenter, and sorry, let me just, I've got to, what do I have to do here? Here we go. Sorry about that. Hi there. Oh my gosh, Dr. Chin, you look cold wherever you are.
Oh, yes.
And if
So
it's okay.
I'm in the car.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to just quickly introduce our next guest and our last presenter for the day, Dr. Bridget Chin. I met her through that wonderful conference offered by PAMA, Performing Arts Medicine Association, last year, and I was so taken with her workshop presentation that she did with her partner from the Harvard Medical School at Spalding Rehab Hospital. That I got in touch with her because I thought, oh my God, this is perfect for our upcoming symposium. So here she is, and she was gracious enough to join us via via the feed. We actually went ahead and we pre-taped her session. So give me just a few seconds. I will share it with us. Just because she's traveling and we weren't sure what the Wi-Fi connection was going to be. But as I said, Dr. Chin is an acupuncturist, an acupressurist, and also a medical doctor. She was an instructor at Harvard Medical School, as well as assistant professor at Michigan State University. And what I love about her presentation is she's going to give you wealth of information, but the last 25 minutes, we're going to get to do, guys, self-care, acupressure, trigger point massage. So it's just going to be fabulous. So if you just bear with me for 2 seconds, I'm actually sharing the wrong thing here. So let me just pull it up. Sorry, because we didn't have a
That's
break.
okay.
I didn't have time to pull it
Thank
up.
you
But
so
give me
much.
just 2
No worries.
2 seconds.
Thank
And I
you
would
so
say,
much, everyone.
if you want to just say a few words, please do.
Sure, I do. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this conference. I'm so excited and happy to have a wonderful friend and colleague, Dr. Rose Grace. She is very graceful and kind, and I'm so happy to teach you a little bit about what I do as part of my day. Most of what I do is of course, teaching medical students and residents and some fellows. But I do have a private practice also, which I continue with to keep up my skills. And, in regards to the collaboration between, Tai Chi and acupuncture, I do have a lot of patients that do both types of integrative modalities, and it works very well in conjunction with Tai Chi. Tai Chi is actually a very ancient form of exercise. It's actually started as a martial art and is wonderful because it reflects off your opponent's energy, and so the strength of your opponent can never beat you because you're reflecting off their energy. That's what I love about Tai Chi, but as a general exercise, it moves energy throughout the whole body. So I hope you enjoy this and enjoy the acupressure part too.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share, we're going to watch this. It's about a 55 minutes, as I said, both informational and then actual trigger points. So please do the acupressure with us, with Dr. Chin. And if it's okay, Dr. Chin, we will kind of come back to you live then after we watch this and hopefully have a couple of questions that you can take from us and
Wonderful.
the audience. Thanks so much. So let me just cue this up. Okay, so it is recording and I'm taking myself out. Oh, sorry, did I put the wrong one? I might have put on the wrong one. 1 second. Let's try this again. Sorry, this is what happens. Okay, here we go. This is the right one. There we go. Here's the full one.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Dr. Chin. I'm an instructor at Harvard Medical School Spalding and also an assistant professor at Michigan State University College of Human Medicine. And today I'm going to present acupuncture and acupressure for musicians, an experimental self-care approach. And so I'm really pleased to be here today, even virtual, to share my knowledge with you, and I hope you get a lot out of it. So today I'm going to go over a little bit about anxiety and stress in musicians. I'm going to define acupuncture and acupressure. We're going to talk about the science and research behind that, talk about pain, particularly in musicians, and have an experiential acupressure treatment that you guys can do on your own for yourself and for friends and for family to help treat anxiety, stress, and pain. So I want to first say thank you. Thank you for becoming a musician, because musicians are really unique. You're really special people. Your brains are so different. There's so much research on this. You differ in structure of the cerebrum and the cerebellar hemispheres, basically gray and white matter. So every part of the brain is very different. And you also differ in terms of sound processing and music perception and music processing, and also performance. So you are very unique and special individuals. And, you know, music has so many benefits on well-being. Positive aspects such as motivation and meaning and bringing emotion, improving your mood, engagement, having positive relationships and feeling a sense of accomplishment, learning, continuous learning for lifelong learning and development. But unfortunately, there are some negative aspects to being a musician, such as anxiety, stress, depression, and physical pain or musculoskeletal disorders that you can experience because of the challenging job of being a musician and all that training. And so the prevalence of anxiety in musicians, well, is much higher. So typically in college students, we found, based on the Mayo Clinic studies, about 44% in college students overall have anxiety and depression. But in musicians, based on these two surveys, it's over 2/3. And there's so many causes of stress and anxiety in musicians. It's very individualized, but the same themes keep recurring over and over again based on some of the surveys that they've given recently on musicians. Poor working conditions, antisocial working hours, kind of nocturnal, exhaustion, financial concerns, a lack of recognition for all this work that you've put in. Sometimes it takes a while, and physical impacts, such as, musculoskeletal pain and disorders, this fear, the fear of failure, fear of, financial instability. There's a lot of pressure to succeed, and sometimes it can be lonely on the road, on yourselves, or, just concerns about being evaluated by others. So there are a lot of different causes. So what you don't want is to have that anxiety affect your performance, which is called stage fright. And, everyone has had this at some point in their lives. I remember having this when I was playing violin in 5th grade, and I just completely freaked standing in front of that audience. And it's really the fear of one's ability to perform, either before an audition, a performance, or, an interview for a job. All these things can cause performance anxiety. And it's independent of training or accomplishment. So it doesn't matter if you just started the trombone or you've been playing double bass for 25 years. This can occur in both types of students. And it's this potential, like possible fear that of humiliation, rejection, or shame that just kind of comes to the front of your brain. And, there are certain risk factors that is related to having more performance anxiety or stage fright. And those are like kind of perfectionistic people, or if you're a soloist, it tends to happen more in females. In an older age group, 35 to 45, though it can happen, in the college age also. When you're performing in front of a larger audience, it tends to happen more. And also if you've had previous anxiety in the past or an anxiety disorder. And unfortunately, severe anxiety can really affect your, feelings of self-worth, and it can lead to unhealthy behaviors such as drug or alcohol misuse and abuse, or self-deprecation, or even self-harm. And it can also lead to avoidance and, disruption of your social life and also your work life, your school life. And when that occurs, it's called a social phobia disorder. So this is something you do not want to occur. So you want to treat this earlier on. So what happens in the body is really exciting and interesting. We have an amazing body and a physiological response to this fear that can occur with stage fright. And your autonomic nervous system basically turns on and signals to the rest of the body, and it tells your it increases blood to your whole body. You have, oftentimes like you feel really hot and you get sweaty palms, your heart rate starts pounding, you get, kind of stomach cramps, and, you're breathing faster, and all of a sudden you get this tunnel vision and you can't really focus at all. That's that stress response that, is all coming from your brain. It's really amazing. And so it's really important, in order to be your best musician self, to, increase awareness of anxiety and depression and destigmatize, students that have these problems, and recognize really if you're struggling, to learn these coping and wellness skills and get help. And the earlier, the better. And unfortunately, 75% of college students are reluctant to ask for help until it's too late. And we're going to change gears now to talk a little bit about acupuncture. And I love acupuncture. I started learning about acupuncture in high school when my dad taught me my first point, large intestine 4, for headaches. And since then, after a lot of stuff, I decided that I would study acupuncture. So what is it? Well, according to the American Academy of Medical Acupuncture, it's one method. It's a method to encourage the body's natural ability to heal, allowing for health and wellness. Sometimes it can prevent illness, and it also can treat all different types of medical conditions. And this has been studied in the literature. And it's based upon the traditional Chinese medicine of Tao philosophy, where you really want to have balance and harmony with the entire world, nature, the elements. And that's really important because, we are part of this earth. And we should respect that. And this is, based upon philosophy that's, almost 4,000 years old. I mean, that's so crazy, right? And so there's a couple concepts that you really need to learn before you know more about acupuncture, and one is this chi, or energy and life force. And so what makes something living versus not living? Well, it's this energy that travels through our body, and it travels through channels called meridians, and they move in a directional flow just like electricity. And so what happens is, when your movement of this energy through your body becomes imbalanced. So for instance, there's the traditional Chinese theory of yin yang, where there's opposites. Where you have dark, you have light. And when you have, male, you have female, solid, hollow, those kinds of things. And this is also happening in our bodies with our organs. And so you have to have a balance. And yin yang represents that. And when you have imbalance, it can lead to illness or the inability to heal. So we really don't understand how acupuncture works, because we really don't understand how the brain works. But we do know a lot of things based on many studies. We know that when an acupuncture needle, which is a metal stainless steel needle, is placed in a point, the central nervous system is stimulated through the peripheral nervous system. So it sends a signal to the brain, and the brain and spinal cord, and also the muscle where you put the needle, releases all kinds of neurochemicals and hormones. And that helps to calm and balance the nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is that, fright and flight, and the parasympathetic is like kind of sleep mode, relaxation after you've had a good meal. And so that tends to balance, because we tend, as with anxiety, tend to have a more sympathetic tone. Additionally, there are some immune responses. So, acupuncture has been found to be beneficial for, people with allergies and people with kind of chronic conditions like high blood pressure. It affects the heart system. And also, it releases endorphins. So the experience of pain changes. So there's been a lot of literature on pain. And there's a sense of calmness or well-being. And that helps the body to self-heal. And as I said about what's released, well, definitely endorphins are released. So people feel good with the acupuncture. But this has been studied, and Jay Shaw at the National Institutes of Health has identified these chemicals, and he calls it a biochemical milieu. So just tons of mediators, neuropeptides, cytokines, and catecholamines, all this stuff that's released when you stick a needle in an acupuncture point. It's truly incredible what our bodies can do. And the scientific research is amazing. And now we're using different techniques. One is called functional MRI, or magnetic resonance imaging. And this is just an image of the brain. And what's great is that you can actually see what happens in the brain when you put an acupuncture needle, or when patients have acupuncture for 6 to 8 weeks. What happens? Well, there's actually changes that occur in many different areas. And so this change is actually a term, and it's called neuroplasticity. So we now know that the brain actually changes with every interaction that you have. And specifically with acupuncture, it changes. So you can see changes that both occur in one side of the brain and also the opposite side of the brain. When I put a needle in a patient, you can actually see that occurring on functional MRI. And in addition, there are some studies that actually see changes in symptomatic relief. So they correlate kind of symptomatic relief, like how are you doing? Are you less anxious? Are you less depressed? Based on, various types of surveys. And then they also measure, for this one particular study, they measured the how fast the nerve actually conducts in the wrist. So this was a study on carpal tunnel syndrome from Harvard, from Spalding Rehab Hospital, and they correlated, what's going on in the brain, is something really happening, how are the patients feeling based upon their symptoms, and then, oh my gosh, let's measure how fast their the median nerve that's blocked with carpal tunnel, how fast that's actually working. And it actually found changes that occurred in nerve conduction and symptoms of the patient, and changes in the brain based on functional MRI. I mean, that's really great evidence that acupuncture is doing something to the body. So I was really surprised how much information there was out there on acupuncture and looking at anxiety and anxiety disorders. There's quite a lot. And so if you kind of transpose all of this information, there are some studies, not a ton of studies, but there are some studies showing that acupuncture is also beneficial for anxiety and anxiety disorders, particularly in musicians. And here are some of the studies that showed, some good research out there that shows that it really helps, even before exams. And it also helps to improve working memory in one study. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And acupuncture has actually been embraced positively by the music community, the performing artist community. And a lot of magazines are writing about, acupuncture and how it's a drug-free way to help with some of the chronic pain conditions that musicians have. In fact, there are some really incredible projects and nonprofit groups that are supporting acupuncture for musicians. The Musicians Acupuncture Project is out of San Francisco. And this one, Anata Nola, is for musicians in New Orleans doing ear acupuncture. And that helps for, they went through Hurricane Katrina, and that helps with PTSD. And so there's a lot of support out there for musicians, typically free or at low cost, but not enough. And so I just want to talk about chronic pain. Chronic pain is extremely complex. There's been a ton of literature talking about chronic pain and how acupuncture is beneficial. Chronic pain is very difficult to treat. So you really want to get at the problem before it goes to chronic pain. So if you're starting to feel strain and discomfort once in a while with your holding your instrument, your violin or your trumpet, go and seek help early before it gets to chronic pain. After that, 6 months to a year to 2 years, and we don't know when it occurs from acute to chronic, but when that occurs, then it's totally different in your whole nervous system and your brain, and it's much, much harder to treat. But there is benefit for patients and musicians who have chronic pain. And this is one of the best studies out there. And I don't think there's anything else I need to say, is that looking at, neck, lower back, shoulder pain, osteoarthritis, and headache, that acupuncture was found to be much more beneficial than, not having acupuncture, or even they called it a fake acupuncture. They put fake needles in it. I won't go into that now, but and they said that it's much more than a placebo, that these benefits lasted actually longer, up to a year. And so this is really important, research that was published. So what's amazing is that I found a study from 2018 that actually looked at musicians, and they superimposed their music pain patterns, like where are musicians having the most pain. And so you can see on this diagram that most musicians are having discomfort in kind of the trapezius and neck, upper back area. And it differs from women to men. Women tend to have more pain in that area, and also some in the lower back, as you can see from that diagram. Additionally, it tends to be more on the right hand versus the left hand. And I don't know if they looked at left or right-handedness, but it didn't matter whether or not you played an instrument that was using both arms or just one. So it didn't matter whether it was like a symmetrical or an asymmetrical instrument. It affected mostly the right arm. And unfortunately, if you look at this diagram, the practicing hours and the pain percentage kind of increases as you practice. And of course, everyone wants you to practice, but you really want to be focusing on practicing efficiently and not over practicing and just going through the piece over and over again. There's quite a big difference, and I'm sure I'll leave that up to your professors to help with that. So the treatment of chronic pain in performing arts medicine has been established through a group called Performing Arts Medical Association. That's where I met your professor, Dr. Miss Rose Grace, and she came to PAMA last year and asked me to present this year, and I'm so grateful. But this particular article talks about various things that you can do, and rest, physical therapy, occupational therapy, stretching, strengthening, chiropractic care, acupuncture, different topical medications that you can use, kind of modification, and looking at what you're doing in terms of posture, performance, various types of relaxation techniques. You can use splints, vitamin supplements, other types of exercise conditioning. I'm not going to talk about trigger points, but of course, surgery would definitely be the last resort. So we don't want that. So we want to treat pain before it becomes chronic. And so all that I just talked about, all of these different therapies, is really under the umbrella of this term called integrative medicine. So now we talk about integrative medicine, and it's really, the best of all of these various types of complementary medical care, such as acupuncture, massage therapy, chiropractic care, meditation, guided imagery, all of the Tai Chi, all of these things, and also, Western medicine, or, medications, and, physical therapy, and those kinds of things. So you want to do it in conjunction with, because really the research shows that if you take this type of integrative approach, people do much, much better with chronic pain than if you, do one thing and then stop, and then try something else and then stop. So that integrative approach, doing things together, particularly as a team effort, is really important. And patients who have chronic pain, and hopefully you don't have chronic pain, but if you do, it really is hand in hand with insomnia and also depression, very, very high rates. And so it really at that point becomes a pain syndrome, and you don't want this to happen. But it's important to address, also insomnia and depression if you have pain. And, unfortunately, musicians are notorious for, staying up late at night and sleeping all day. And, as our friend here, Prince, who was an insomniac apparently. But there are studies to show that, acupuncture can be helpful in treating sleep disorders, and it is helpful in conjunction with medications. And if you add acupuncture, it works better, and that it may be due to that, balancing of the autonomic nervous system, calming that sympathetic and increasing the parasympathetic nervous system in the body to help balance, to improve sleep. And depression is very well known about in the music profession, but acupuncture does help in addition to antidepressants if you need them. For depression, mild depression, you can treat, and even for severe depression, even for like major depressive disorder or really complex, hard to treat depression, such as when patients have after a car accident, PTSD, or stroke, acupuncture seems to be helpful. And there are just some studies looking at the brain and how that works. And of course, if you have both, it's really compounding, particularly in musicians, and can really affect your life and quality of life. And so this particular study just shows that, acupuncture can help reduce anxiety, depression, and improve quality of life and care, standard of care, when used. And so the acupuncture needle itself, as I'm just going to pull one out, it's actually very, very thin, and it's really, really flexible. So sometimes it's thinner than a hair, and it's rounded at the tip. So it's rounded. So it's not meant to cause any trauma to the body. So I'm just going to pull out another one and show you. And it really doesn't hurt. So I don't know if you can see this, but so I just tap in, and you sometimes can feel, I felt like a little pinch, and you can even manipulate it. See that? And I feel like a little sensation going kind of up and down my arm. I felt it down and coming up, which is interesting. And when I pull out the needle, there's really minimal bleeding. I don't think there's any bleeding. Yeah, so that is it. And I know that some of you may feel scared of needles, right? I don't like needles myself, even though I use them on other people. But there are a lot of other different options for treatment, such as acupressure, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit later today, Tuina, which is just going along the meridians, kind of massaging. There's heat, which is on the left lower, which is it's like a big cigar, burning a special herb that a lot of acupuncturists will use. There's laser acupuncture. There's cupping, which has been famous for swimmers on the Olympic team, have some bruising from it, from the cupping, and also the use of magnets. And I love magnets, and that's just another way of stimulating the acupuncture points. So mostly there are really minimal side effects, and this has been studied. Sometimes there are none, but you can feel like mild disorientation. Sometimes you have lightheadedness, but you can get a sense of deep relaxation from acupuncture. So, of course, you want to be, when you're performing acupressure or acupuncture, you want to be in a comfortable position, like sitting down or even lying down. There are some less common side effects, such as dizziness. Sometimes you can get an emotional release. Like yesterday, I had a patient that I treated, and she was a COVID long hauler, and she just started crying and crying and couldn't stop and didn't understand why. And it's because of that emotional release. Sometimes you have some changes in the bowel and bladder or sleep. And very rarely do I have worsening symptoms. Once in a while, in a headache, like really severe headache patient, they'll have like it starts to get to be really bad, the headache, but then it goes away. So these tend to be very transient. So they tend to go away very quickly. But this is another response that kind of, guides me to tell me that the acupuncture is actually doing something. Because not everybody responds. So I would say about 80% of patients, but the majority, most patients respond, or most people will respond positively to acupuncture. So I'm just going to go into the potential complications of the acupressure, because that's what we're going to be doing. Sometimes there might be some bruising if you press too hard, so you don't want to press too hard. There is potential for fainting. So if you start to feel nauseous or a little lightheaded, just let go, relax, and put your finger here, right underneath your nose, and that can help. Rarely there's vertigo. I've only experienced one patient who had, really the room spinning after acupuncture in my, over, 15 years of treating patients. The other stuff is really from the needle. If you have like a not well-trained person treating you, so you want to make sure that you go to a good person who's well-trained. So how many treatments? Well, it depends on how complex the situation is, how severe it is, how long you've had the condition. But you should typically see a response in about 6 to 8 sessions, if not earlier. All right, so thank you so much. And this is the experiential acupuncture session. Acupressure is very similar to acupuncture, except you only use your hands. So there's no concerns of bleeding or other possible complications that you would have with acupuncture. Acupressure itself is a very powerful treatment and can be used for many of the same ailments as acupuncture. And you want to make sure that your hands are clean, so wash your hands, and that you apply a firm pressure, such as this, to the acupuncture point. And you can either press and hold, or you can move in a circular motion without moving your finger. Another way is to tap and hold, tap and hold, tap and hold. Those are 3 different ways of applying pressure. You never want to press on skin that is abnormal, such as you want to avoid rashes, bruises, cuts, very dirty skin. You want to avoid that. Okay. And I believe that is it. We can start. So I'm going to show you a bunch of points specifically for our topic today. The first one is grade rushing. This is a foot point, and it's to treat stress, anxiety, nausea, vomiting. You can also treat lower back pain, and you want to feel between the first and second toe, and you can do this on top of your sock, although when you get home it's better to take off your socks. If you feel comfortable taking off your socks, is fine. And you want to find that line and push downwards until your finger stops. And this is a good one for also if you have insomnia or if you have, anger issues, and also good for lower back pain. So when I press, I want to take some deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Just for a few minutes. And you can do both toes at the same time if you crisscross your feet. And it's always important to take those breaths through the nose. And I won't get into that now, but try that. Okay, the next point is on the hand. And this is the first point that my father taught me. This is used to treat and the next point is on the hand. This is the first point that my father taught me. It's used to treat anxiety, depression, jaw pain, dental pain on the same side. This is contraindicated in pregnancy. So to find this point, basically on the top of the hand, you just go to the union, similar to the foot point. And you go down with your finger and push until you feel a stop. And then you want to press kind of against the index finger. Okay? And deep breath in and out. In and out. In and out. And if you notice my breathing, I'm trying to breathe on a count of 4 to 7. And you can breathe out through the mouth or through the nose. But breathing in is important through the nose. It warms the air, helps with oxygenation. And you can do this on both hands. And actually, if you just do these 4 points on the toes and on the hands, this is a very powerful treatment. It's used to treat headaches also. And it helps to circulate energy throughout your whole entire body. So it's a very powerful point. If you start to feel a little lightheaded or nauseous, just stop. And you can lay down or you can just try to press right here. That will help with that. Okay. The next point is a very popular point for nausea and vomiting. A lot of patients have used this before. They have created what they call C bands for this particular point. But what's important about this point is that you want to measure the patient's hand or your hand onto that point. So let's see if I can try to do this. So bend your wrist and 3 fingers here. And then you want to find in between right there. That is the point. In between the 2 tendons. Hold on. See if I can. Right there. That is the point. And you can do this on both arms. It's great for anxiety. If you're having like performance anxiety or motion sickness, if you have heart palpitations and you feel, everything is starting to go crazy, just press on this point and breathe. Okay, let's move on. So the outer gate is very similar. It's the opposite side. Just bend the wrist, 3 fingers, and right here, that point. This is a great point for anxiety, help to boost the immune system, for wrist pain or discomfort. Deep breath in. Out. All right. I love this point. This is a point that I often use for my patients and myself and my family. This is an immune point. This is great if you want to boost your immune system. This is a good point for shoulder pain. And you just want to bend the elbow, and at the corner, bend the elbow, and at the corner, you can just press on that point and press downward. This is a great point for the shoulder, arm discomfort, eczema, to boost your immune system. And you can do this on both sides. Deep breath in and out. That's how I do it on both points at the same time. Okay. The next point is a wonderful point for anxiety, panic attacks, if you have discomfort in the chest or shortness of breath, or even chest congestion. It's right at this level of your nipples, and you just touch the midline right on top of the sternum, not too low, but just kind of like in the lower 1/3 of the sternum. And this is a great one to tap. Let's all try. You want to make sure that you don't press so hard that it hurts, because it will be a little uncomfortable at this point. But you want to make sure that you don't bruise yourself. Okay, next point is wind pull. So this is a fairly common point that a lot of people use for headaches, for stress, neck pain, and dizziness. I'm going to turn around, and what I'll do is find the midline at the occiput and go over the big bump of muscle, and then there'll be kind of like a hollow that you feel, and it's a little tender, and that will be the point, and you just press on that. Okay, so I'm going to turn around and show you. The midline, the big band of muscle here, and there's another muscle here, and you just want to go in between that hollow and press. Breath in and out. All right. So this is also another point that I use a lot, and this is great, particularly for musicians, because we learned from that study that a lot of our discomfort and pain is in the neck and upper trapezius areas. So this treatment can treat also headache, neck pain, shoulder discomfort, and overall stress, dizziness. It is contraindicated in pregnancy. And I like to reach this point basically by just kind of crossing my arms over. And you can feel this point if you start at the neck and just kind of bring it down over the shoulder. And it's a big, bulky muscle pad that you feel. And you just kind of want to press and just find that point that is a little more uncomfortable, a little more tender, and press on that point. You can even raise your elbows if you need to reach. Breath in and out. This is a good one to do on friends and family, because then you can just relax and then have somebody else push on your shoulder points. The next one is the lower back. Let me try to see if I can help you find this one. So this is wonderful for lower back pain, back strain, stress, encouragement. They call it an encouraging point. And you want to find it by just going to like the smallest part of your waist above your hips in the back. And I'll turn around. And then you find that big muscle of the back. It's called the quadratus lumboris. And you want to just go right to the sides of the edge where you can feel the edge of the muscle. So let me turn around and help you find that point. One second. Okay. So you find at the waistline above the hips here, find that big strap of muscle, and you go to the edge, and you want to go one thumbprint above that. You find a little sore spot, and that is the point. Breath in, and out. Okay, onwards. So many points. This is a wonderful point, Shenmen. It's part of the NADA protocol, which is a protocol for PTSD. And I think I mentioned that with the NADA NOLA group in New Orleans. They use this for their musicians there. So this is a great treatment for anxiety, depression, PTSD, addiction, and also an inflammation point. And you basically find it at the ear, and you want to see the little triangle here. It's kind of at the corner of that triangle right there. So once you find the point, then you can use your finger, and that's hard to see, and use your finger or even your fingernail to press against that point. And you only have to do one side, you don't have to do both sides. The other thing some people do will push on the back. So once you have the point in the front, you have a point just the opposite in the back, and you can press. But not too hard, just gentle pressure. You can kind of tap on the point, both sides, without really lifting your finger. But I just like to press right there. Breath in and out. Okay, I like this point because if you get anxious during a class or you're out in public somewhere, no one knows that you're doing it. You just kind of rub your ear like this and take some breaths, and it helps to calm down the nervous system. This next point is what a lot of people know of as the third eye, and it's well recognized in various different cultures. And this is a great point for anxiety, headache, sinus congestion. And this is a great point to tap. It's right in the middle of your eyebrows. You can tap, or you can hold, or you can press. Deep breath in and out. In and out. And there's so many more points that I could show you, but we don't have enough time today. So I want to thank everyone, Dr. Grace and Dr. Lee, for allowing me to be a part of this incredible music and medicine symposium today and share some of my knowledge with you. In summary, the majority of patients do respond positively to acupuncture, and research shows that it is helpful in anxiety and musculoskeletal pain. And early diagnosis is really crucial for preventing any type of social phobia disorder or chronic pain syndrome, particularly in musicians. And you don't have to take my word for it. So just remember to be your best musician self. And if you are a wildcat, now you know what to do. And you don't have to take my word for it. This is, I'm sure, a friend and colleague of all of yours. But she actually, if you read the last line, states, "My diet is important and I use tools like acupuncture, meditation, visualization, and breathing exercises." Thank you so much. All right. I hope you enjoyed that. Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. But yeah, you missed all the applause. We need to do the applause again because there's Peg here in the studio. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.
And you're also
really
getting
fun.
some wonderful comments online here.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Dr. Chin. Just excellent. So do we want to take a few questions from our audience here? Anybody? And I'll try to repeat them so everybody can. Doctor, this is Mr. Ram, our vocal professor here.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. Thank you very much. In 1977, I woke up to do learning how to use.
I'm having trouble hearing.
I'm going to repeat, Mr. Ram. Is that okay? I'm going to be your translator because for some reason we were getting feedback with our mic, so I'm going to keep it on on here. So Mr. Ram said he woke up in 1977 for his Carnegie Hall debut.
My manager and I had been learning about acupuncture, so we tried it that morning.
And he and his manager tried acupuncture that morning.
Wow.
I was able to do my Carnegie Hall debut because of acupuncture.
And he was able to do his Carnegie Hall debut because of, he attributes it to acupuncture because he wasn't feeling so great. Isn't that, I think it's a great story.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's wonderful.
Well, and as you know, we've talked, I mean, I had a whole journey myself, recovering from a pretty devastating treatment, actually, for a health condition. And it was acupuncture that totally saved me. Acupuncture and music, really.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions from the students that you want to ask? No. I want to ask one question. Oh, go ahead, Deja, please.
So I was wondering about how long do you think that we should kind of do each of the exercises or the acupressure
points? That's a good question.
Yeah.
How long?
And how often do you think?
That's
yes,
great.
That's a really good question. We've actually, many acupuncturists have actually talked about this question and how long to leave the needles in or how long to press. And typically, if you press for a minute or two, that should be enough to help. And the more frequently you do it, I think the better, depending on what the condition is. If it's a pain issue, then I would think, a little bit more would definitely be better. But, it's not 100% clear in the literature, but I think most people hold the point for, say for the outer gate, I would say about 1 to 2 minutes is enough.
Okay.
If you can, yeah. If you can do longer, that would be great. I've held this point when I have a headache. Sometimes what I'll do is it will go away, and then once I release, it comes back, and so I tend to then hold on to it for a good maybe 3-4 minutes. But it depends on what you're doing. For just generalized wellness, I think a minute is fine. You can do this once a day. What's great about it is there's very little side effects. So you can do it once a day. You can do it once every other day, once a week, if you don't have time. But the most important thing is to just, utilize these techniques. You'll find it's really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I have one question. I know we're running over, but I just want to ask a quick question about breathing.
Oh, yes. So
if you can just expand a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. So we had a huge, discussion on PAMA about breathing, but I like to breathe through the nose because it warms the air. There's actually studies saying that you have the ability to release, absorb more oxygen through warmed air that's been prepared versus through the mouth. It's very quick versus the nose. The air itself is prepared for the lungs. And so that's why when I do acupressure, I like to breathe, and I like to breathe 4 to 7 so that I'm releasing more of carbon dioxide. So I'm releasing more, and to take a big breath that's, with shoulders down and a real tummy breath, like you would do in Tai Chi or yoga, and to breathe in, count of 4, count of 7.
That's great. Any other questions from the audience here or virtual? Please feel free to put your comments in from the virtual audience. I know it's been a long day. Well, it seems like we're quiet. Dr. Chin, I can't thank you enough for joining us while you're traveling.
Thank you.
Thank
you for being kind and patient.
Oh, no, not at all. Thank you. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of the entire music department here at Bethune-Cookman University to our virtual audience as well as our in-house virtual audience for joining us today. I thought the sessions were so informative and this was just a wonderful way to wrap up. I think the day it just all tied in with our first session. So thank you, Dr. Chin. And I also wanted to take the time to thank my 2 fabulous students who are sitting next to me who were would not have done it without them for this technology. So I know we've had a few little, little bumps here and there, but by and large, this was awesome. So thank you, Deja and Anya. And Mr. Polk, by the way, who's not here with us, but of course was supervising it. And again, Dr. Chin, thank you. And thank you to all the presenters who I know might be tuning in virtually. Thank you. And we'll hope to see you all next year.
Have a wonderful day. Take care.
Take care.
Great job.